So whilst Dan fixes himself and figures himself out, I guess we'll just need to wing it and just run through with what we're going to show you today. So the idea today is the future is now, is what Mercury are saying. We're saying we're not waiting for the future to come. There's been a massive burst in AI and automation chat globally, but certainly in this industry in the last 6 months, 9 months. And what we're looking to do today is showcase some of what we're bringing in platforms, some of the stuff that's coming through our development pipeline, and ways in which we believe that recruitment businesses globally can be more effective, not just efficient, but more effective in the way that they operate and the way that they work, and look to ways in which we can increase profit without necessarily having to increase headcount as we go through that too. I think we can all agree there has been this massive AI boom and burst with things like ChatGPT, OpenAI coming through, and the 1,001 tools that have been born out of that only in the last 24 hours, never mind the last 6 months. But one of the things that I've kind of been thinking is that, and the way that we see it, is that yes, it's changing the world, it's changed it massively, but everyone seems to be talking about it mainly right now, or as far as I can see, from the viewpoint of marketing and content creation. But what we believe in, some of the things that we're going to showcase today, is that it can actually affect much, much more than that. Things that seem ever so simple, but can really drive efficiency. Efficiency is one thing, right? Efficiency just gives you more time back, but effectiveness is what you do with that time that AI and automation, when leveraged together, can give you. And that's what we're kind of going to dive into in a little bit more detail. So Kev, in your consultancy role now, you talk about the power of the possible. Does AI make more things possible, I guess, as a question?
Absolutely, yeah. So, I mean, obviously, AI and automation, as you said, we're trying to make people more effective. How can people get more out of their day? How can we get more out of people that are perhaps not as experienced as other people in the business, and empower them with the information that they need to manage the relationships with the stakeholders that they engage with frequently? Whether it's a candidate who's highly skilled and they need to demonstrate that they have a knowledge and a level of understanding about the roles that they're working with, and both from a business development perspective, how can they then engage with potential clients to ensure that they have the best network and the best capability to provide the right resource for their businesses. So scratching the surface of what we're going to do with AI and automation, but it's here and it's really exciting.
And yeah, it is absolutely amazing. Some of the stats around the pace in which it's growing as well, which I think we'll probably touch on as we go through here too. I'm actually interested. Obviously, there are people sitting watching, hopefully, otherwise we're just having a conversation to one another. But interested to understand, in the room, do we have AI pessimists or AI optimists? Keen to hear in the chat whether you think it's going to revolutionize, ruin, add value, or other. So if you've got any thoughts or comments, please do drop them into the chat. Equally, as we go, you've got an opportunity for questions. So I think there's a questions tab, but drop the questions in. We'll get to them at a Q&A piece at the end as best we can. So yeah, let us know who's here, and make sure that we're not just talking to ourselves. Otherwise, we may as well just do that face to face, Kev. So the future is now, as I said, is our most recent marketing campaign. It's something that we're running with, and as I say, what we're saying is we believe we have the technology of the future, and we're able to leverage it now for the benefit of the recruitment and staffing markets globally. Kev, I think you're going to run through that first scenario, looking at the ways that we can become more effective, become more efficient, and how we can take keywords from conversation, from voicemail, for example, and how that can do things like create vacancy automatically, can start to go, steps further than just picking out keywords from voicemails and then actioning that inside your CRM or your ATS. But I'll mute myself and I'll pass over to you for a second.
Yeah, let me just share my screen here. So the idea of this scenario is that maybe you've been in a meeting with a client, you've agreed some actions and some outcomes. You've walked out of the meeting and you want to react to that really quickly. So essentially, voice to text. I can come out of the meeting, be in my CRM, and I can talk into my phone. And the example that I'm going to give right now is I just spoke with Chris Kendrick at Disney Group. He's recruiting for a project manager on a permanent basis located in London with a salary around £40,000. And the next step is to follow up by email with some candidates and schedule a Teams meeting for the 29th of June at 9 a.m. to discuss. Now, what I have just done there is recorded my notes into the system, which will create a lead. It could be a vacancy. It will then create all of the actions that I want it to. It's going to record the fact that I've just had that meeting or that conversation, and it's going to then schedule a meeting and invite schedule the follow-up meeting and invite the Chris Kendrick, who I was just meeting with, and create an email back to Chris confirming the 3 candidates that are right. So I'm quickly and effectively being able to create that lead, that information, and respond to Chris with that. Maybe. So what I'm able to quickly do is absolutely, he says. Yeah, just give that a few seconds. But what that is enabling me to do is create that info, which is going to go straight back off to. There we go. So created the meeting, created the call, and created the email with all of the 3 candidates that I wanted to send to him as in a follow-up. So it's very quick, very easy to create things automatically within the system, and AI is generating all of that for me. So just bear with me, just a little bit of go slow here. But this has been automatically created on the back of my note into system. There you go. There are those 3 things. It's happened. There was the phone call, the appointment, and the email that was followed up, containing those 3 candidates and attaching their CVs as well. So it's gone away, built a search, as well as adding those candidates into an email that will go off to Chris for review.
Brilliant. And how far could that go?
Oh, I think we're just scratching the surface here. I think it can just not automate trigger actions such as this. It can then follow up actions beyond that. So just step 1, step 2. Yeah, I think it's if you can think it, we can do it. I think that's the stage we're at.
And is there a risk? I mean, is there a risk that this makes people lazy?
I don't think so. I think this is actually giving people, as we'll show in the next session, or not next session, in the next example, is actually empowering people to do more and to give you the information that you need to do at the time you need to do it. So I don't think there's a risk of people becoming lazy. I think it's actually giving people the skill set to learn whilst give people the skill set to learn whilst giving it the machine is helping them do that.
Yeah, I kind of tend to agree with you, and again, and encourage thoughts and questions in the group, because it'd be keen to kind of hear everyone's thoughts on that too. My personal thoughts are there are a lot of examples where Ramp up time for junior recruiters, people coming into the business, people that have never done this before, who you want to get up to standard, to profitability quicker. And if we can make every single step much, much quicker and easier and help them learn in every step of the way, then this is absolutely something that I believe is going to assist and support in the growth of those people. The next scenario that you were going to look at, well, I think was around vacancy enrichment. So vacancy enrichment's basically being able, what we'll do is we're going to show Mercury, we're going to show how you can then populate and add a job description, have the system automatically write Boolean search strings for you for finding the best candidates for the vacancy that you have available. So I don't know if you want to talk to that slightly and then maybe share your screen and give an example of that too.
Yeah, so I guess what we're trying to again do is many recruiters are perhaps sometimes they're new to the business and they're new to the particular area that they're working on. How can we give a recruiter the knowledge that they need to have that those conversations earlier? We're trying to reduce the ramp up period that it takes to get a recruiter productive. So let me just again share my screen, and what this is going to show is the ability to create a vacancy. We're using Mercury as this example, of course, but what we're trying to do is, what information do I now need to know to have the next best conversation with either the candidate, maybe the advertisement, and obviously to get the right people in front of our client. So this wizard is determined. It's pulled through the details of the job here. This is a permanent role. It's a senior software role. It's in London. How do I want to make the tone of the job advert? I can determine whether it's exciting, professional, quirky, punchy. And if I choose exciting, I can determine whether it's a short advert, but also the other information that I want as a recruiter to have the next conversations, as I mentioned. Tell me a bit of useful information, create me an email description that once I've done my first search, I'm going to send out an email to the initial list of people, just explaining a little bit more about the role and why they might want to be excited about coming back for a conversation. It's going to ask for some qualification questions around the key skills that we require, so that when I do have those conversations with the candidates, I am immediately empowered with the information I need. It's going to explain some of those skills that we're looking for for the role, again, so that when I'm talking to the right people, they think I know what I'm talking about. So I do know what I'm talking about, but then I'm able to learn from those skills over time as well. And then the job title explained. So again, I'm a junior recruiter in this example. How can I immediately have those conversations? And it's going to just generate that. So just a couple of seconds here while we go off and use ChatGPT to create all of this content, and you can start to see that appearing. So as that happens, we can start to read through that information. Should I choose to, I can add it back to the vacancy, of course. And again, that's then within system for all of us to see. So here is the useful information that I need about the role that I'm looking for. The email, as if I want to send that out to the clients. Some killer questions here. So I've got those questions that I needed to be answered, and it's also giving me the answers to those questions, and then it's explaining some of the skills. And if I want to, I can add that back to the vacancy, and again, that's back in system. We can start to learn from that data and then start to use it for future roles. But it's giving people the information that they need to see to have empowered conversations. If in this example, perhaps my skill set doesn't match the experience of some of the people that I'm talking to. Nick, any thoughts on that one? How does that look? When you've been talking about that with potential clients, how's that been received when we're sounding people out?
Yeah, people have been really impressed, I think, and it comes to the point around ramp up time, whether that be someone who's picking up a new desk for a growing organisation who've never looked at something, or whether it be a cohort of 8 grads or juniors who have come into the business. It's kind of always been the way that people have sort of accepted, rightly or wrongly, that you bring in 8, 3, 4 of them will work out, and another one might work out, and the rest we kind of just accept over a course of time that they might not be right and we might not be right for them. But actually, the feedback's generally being this can help us retain more juniors, help us learn quicker into new desks and new sectors, and drive the ramp up time to a point where we're much more profitable at a much quicker point, but we're not sacrificing on the best behaviours that we want people to display, the appropriate workflow and tasks that we want them to achieve in order to do what we need to do. But yeah, the feedback we're getting is fairly impressive. I mean, obviously, this could be used for other things too, right? Other examples in the platform that we're looking at are things like a candidate comes into the system, they're parsed in from somewhere, they're brought into the platform. Automatically, the system can take it, ingest their CV or their resume, can understand it and summarize that in a 100, 200 word summary, which can then be used for other things, right? And that's just one other small way in which we can use this sort of technology as we go through too. So it's not encouraging us to be lazy, is what we're saying, or take shortcuts. It can actually help educate recruiters too. But what do you think that the future? This is a very big question for you, Kevin. I'm going to drop it right on you. But what do you think the future for AI in recruitment can be?
Well, I think so a little bit what we've demonstrated here now. We're not necessarily looking to replace people or the role, the great role that the recruiters have. But what we are trying to do is, as I've mentioned a number of times, is just give people the information that they need in order to have the conversations with the right people. It may be that there's some low value jobs where you don't want to low value low margin work where you don't want to invest serious time with people. We can absolutely deal with that, where we can take information in from third-party applications, analyze it within ChatGPT, build out search criteria, find those people and submit them back. That's absolutely possible. But what we're really looking to do is make the most of people that need to know and need to know quickly in order to be profitable and productive.
Yeah, I agree. And I'd be again interested to hear from anyone watching their thoughts on this next comment that I make. But typically over the years, from being in recruitment for 5-6 years to selling into recruitment for coming on 6 years now too, it's typically in a standard agency, you've got 20% of those in the business perform well above target. And then you've got the significant percentage thereafter that typically don't, and it's the 20% here that typically even out everything that happens down here. And it's actually those people that I believe we can help most, not just what you're talking about around taking people's focus into revenue generation activity, because we can support filling all these ones down here, and we can focus in the high value piece, but actually those who are underperforming and that were middle of the road. And if we take another 10, 15, 20% of those and push them into the bracket up here, what does that actually mean for the bottom line of the agencies that are operating? Do you need to invest in X, Y, or Z? Do you need to throw that additional money into something else? Or can you strategically place that in more people that you know and you can predict more easily will be more successful as they come into your organisation? But again, keen to hear the thoughts of those watching it up at this point too. Keen to take some questions at this point. We are conscious of time.
There are a couple of questions. Sorry, I just noticed there are a couple of questions. So yeah, obviously we're conscious of laws, and we can deal with.
No, no, let's go. Let's go. Let's look through some of the questions that we've got there. Then, if anyone has any others, then just drop them in as we go. One of the other questions that I've got is: are you advocating AI makes decisions about candidates for us? What do you think?
No, I mean, I think there will be circumstances depending on perhaps the value of the deal where AI where AI can make assessments on individuals. I don't see that particularly at the higher end of of the market where people absolutely have the skill set. I don't think you want AI to replace the human element of a relationship and that nurture process. But there's definitely an argument to say that at a certain level of deal value, that and perhaps skill set of the individual respectfully, where you could allow that interpretation to be made.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, fair. Yeah, fair play. Um, Other questions. So I'm just scouting through all the chat just to see any others. Where do we record the info? Is this a workflow that generates the activities? I think that was back at the start when you were showing the
Yeah.
first scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we're in that example, we're creating a flow of activities that are trigger points. So I was talking about that. You create one lead, one job that creates you additional tasks, but for you to do. So yeah, the info in the Mercury world is an entity, a table, which can be converted into a live vacancy once you've nurtured the lead. But yeah, we can do a similar thing, perhaps with when you add a new job rather than a new lead that would then subsequently be created into a vacancy. But it is a workflow that's worked on certain trigger points. I do this, it triggers this, it would trigger something else in the future should it need to.
Cool. And then there's another question that's come in, but it looks like it's been answered by Steve fairly efficiently. Is from Sean. Looks great, Kevin and Nick. Thank you. I'll just leave it there. Looks like you're going to challenge us with a question. How does this comply with the NYC Local Law 114? And then, as Steve's quite effectively, there he's go. Can I show that? I think maybe everyone can see that. Text built on a Microsoft platform, sure you know. So the AI follows the rules defined by them. So Microsoft's responsible AI principle, fairness. AI systems should be treat all people fairly. Yeah. I think that's fair to say. What we're doing is piggybacking on one of the most secure and powerful and legally compliant systems in the world. But sounds like you know more than I do, Sean. So keen to hear your thoughts. Other question that's come through here in the private questions chat is how do I know if my data is any good for machines to learn from?
Well, I think that's, I mean, that is a key question for anyone that's considering using any form of AI. That you'll come up with concepts, but it needs to have good data. The data needs to reside in one single store so that we can learn from one single source of the truth. And again, that's obviously I'm going to put my salesman's comment on here, but that's one of the true values of Mercury and the platform that we play in, and where you've got multiple sources of data that are all living in silo, then it obviously becomes very hard for the machine to learn from that. But yeah, so good data is absolutely needed for effective use of this type of technology.
Cool, perfect. Let's see if there's any other questions coming through.
I can see one, which I'm going from the bottom up. So when will this be available? This is absolutely proof of concept. This has been developed very quickly over, we work in sprint cycles, and it's been created quite recently. But we see this being available almost immediately. So yeah, it's now. It's certainly not at some point in the future. There's definitely it's here and will be available to our customers in a relatively short period of time.
Cool. This is this is a bit of a video here that's playing on how it's actually working and how it's operating, how the system is able to, from voicemail or from live call, pull the relevant information, similarly to the example that you'd shown in the first place. I thought there was going to be volume, but it turns out there's not. So now we're just watching a silent video. So that's amazing. We'll maybe just stop that actually. And go to what I think is the final question, which I saw come back through here, is just to elaborate further on your point around when will this be available. Some of this is pushing out hopefully over the next 6 to 8 weeks. It's some of the stuff that we're pushing right on towards the end of the process there as well. So, and if anyone wants to see any of this, any more detail, just get in touch, because we'll be able to jump online and have a chat with you and show you in more detail and in more depth. But that takes us pretty much on to almost half an hour. So we'll maybe thank you for coming if there aren't any other questions. And we'll give it 5 seconds in case any other questions come through, and then we'll call it quits. No. I guess that's it then.
Yeah, thanks everyone, and
thanks very much. Cheers for coming.
Thank you.